Hello, BookTube. It's time for another article for Maze for Magazine's events. This was created by Faith at Faith&Books, and I thought it was a fabulous idea. It's basically based on reading or discussing an article from a magazine that was printed before the presenter's birth. So no really contemporary new stuff. And it can also be something that was reprinted in a book form after. And as I say, I thought this was fabulous because I do have a lot of magazines and periodicals that are from the 18th, 19th, and early 20th centuries. And some of them I haven't really looked at too much, so this will give me a good chance to have a closer look. And I'm determined to do one a day. We'll see how that works. But I'm not going to do lengthy ones, or at least not read lengthy ones, unless something is very, very interesting. This is a short one for today, but what I found more interesting is the magazine itself. It's the Everyman magazine. It's his life, work, and books. Now, it was originally created by J.M. Dent, and it was edited by Charles Sirens, and it started in 1912, and there's a bit of a history. I've created another video with some information about the Everyman magazine, which seems to have almost been forgotten in history of magazines, like I'm sure a lot are, but J.M. Dent was a big publisher, so, and it was, I think, an interesting magazine. So I go into a little more detail there, or what detail that I do know at this point, because it is, as I say, there's not much information, at least not readily available. So today I'm going to read an article from Friday, January the 10th, 1913. It's number 13, volume 1, and it was published weekly and on Fridays, and it cost 1 penny, at least in 1913. And I'm going to read a one-column article called Industrial Unrest by Hector MacPherson. History bears melancholy testimony to the fact that humanity, in its march down the centuries, has been shadowed by the gaunt, pretentious figure of poverty. In our day, the dread specter is more than ever foreboding, in view of the dramatic contrast which now exists between rich and poor. The problem is intensified by the fact that, owing to the spread of education and knowledge, the modern toiler no longer hugs his change in dull despair, but is feverishly looking around for weapons with which to secure his freedom. By means of the political independence which has come to him through the franchise, he is now seeking to achieve his economic independence. The outcome is prolonged industrial unrest, showing itself in bitter conflicts between between capital and labor. It is early days political economy, which, posed as the science of wealth, showed the seeds of conflict when, by means of the Ricardian theory of wages, it declared that between masters and workers there is an inherent antagonism. Nothing but industrial unrest could possibly result from an economic theory which, in the name of scientific method, declared that high profits to the masters could only be secured through low wages to the workers. As our national supremacy depended upon our industrial supremacy, it was an accepted economic axiom that low wages were a necessary adjunct of the British civilization. Next, Malthus came along with his dreary gospel that, as a result of the law of population, there was no cover laid at nature's table for the poor man. Such teaching could not but create in the breasts of the workers a spirit of fierce revolt, which manifested itself in creation of trade unions and latterly legislative attempts to secure a more equitable distribution of national wealth. The latest phase of the conflict is the demand for a minimum wage fixed by the Act of Parliament. The weak point is this movement is that while Parliament can fix minimum wage, it cannot fix the price of commodities. The truth is, no legislative enactment, no politico-economic theory can grapple effectively with industrial unrest which ignores the operation of the law of supply and demand, whose working in the economic sphere is perfectly simple. When two workers run after one master, wages fall. When one master runs after two workers, wages rise. The solution of the question lies in relatively the congestion of the labor market. What is the main cause of this congestion? The obvious answer is land monopoly, which by driving people into the towns overstocks the labor market and result in low wages, unemployment, and slum conditions. In the past, socialists have paid almost exclusive attention to the capitalist monopoly, but in this they have no warrant from their leader Karl Marx. Marx found dramatic illustration of the powerlessness of capitalist monopoly where there is free access to the land in the case of Mr. Peel, who in the early colonizing days took with him from England to Swan River, Western Australia, means of subsistence and production to the amount of £50,000. He also brought with him 3,000 persons of the working classes, men, women, and children. Once arrived at his destination, Mr. Peel was left without a servant to make his bed or to fetch him water from the river. The attempt to create capitalist monopoly failed because the workers who emigrated with Mr. Peel had free access to the land and were not driven to take whatever wages he chose to give them. So, yeah, that ends that. As I say, it's a short article. It's just one column. This was a two-column periodical, unlike the Leigh Hunt's, which was 3 and a little taller. So that was quite daunting to read, the small print. This is sort of, the beginnings of in 1913 of minimum wage, but also it talks about the worker has been sort of freed politically, getting the vote, but obviously before the votes for women, and not full vote actually for men either. I don't think until anyway. There's a lot more history there, so it's a little time capsule, and it's interesting. He's saying, that there is a big disparity between rich and poor. Well, yeah, it always has been, and it is still now. So I found that quite interesting. And as I say, if you are interested in learning a little more about the Everyman magazine, do see my addendum to Everyman magazine, which will be the next video, even though I've recorded these in opposite order. But they will be put up in the correct order. At least I hope they will anyway. Anyway, take care, BookTube, and I hope everybody's enjoying their reading and coping as much as they can. And I will see you next time. Bye.